Autonomy. What the Kel? Haven't used that pun since high school. Hey, you geeks. Ever since the Lost Metal, I have wondered what the Kel happened on Cell after Elantris. So today, we'll talk about that. Spoilers for all released content in the Cosmere, as well as a few choice words of Brandon. It's been all but confirmed that the Elantris sequel begins when Autonomy attacks.
Book 2 of Elantris begins with the return of their god.
And it's implied that during this time, Kelsier and his Ghostbloods are open for business. But what, how, and why are Kelsier and Autonomy interested in Opilan, the land of flowers? To answer that, let's consider Autonomy's nature, her playbook, and how Kelsier sort of copies her. A god of autonomy? What does autonomy mean anyway?
I'll do you one better. Who's Gamora?
I'll do you one better. Why is Gamora?
Classically, as coined by Aristotle, for a person to be autonomous or free, they must be able to choose freely for the common good for the sake of the highest part of him or herself from goodwill. Although Sanderson hasn't cited to Aristotle yet as a source of inspiration, he has referred to Spinoza, who has a very similar view of autonomy. But this ain't the autonomy we've seen so far in the Cosmere, or at least, as far as we know, autonomy's view of the common good is to rid the Cosmere of all other shards and their desires. This sounds more like Kantian autonomy, by which a person is autonomous only if his choices and actions are unaffected by factors that are external or inessential to himself. That is a very odd attribute for a god.
You know, with you, it's always me, me, me.
If Adonalsium went around Yolen without any consideration for persons outside of himself, no wonder why at least 17 people thought it would be a good job to smash him to smithereens. Now that autonomy is on her own, what does that mean? What does it look like? In the real world, we can look to monotheistic religions for the possible examples of an autonomous god. Specifically, the Abrahamic religions with their notable first commandment. I am the Lord your God. You shall not have other gods before me. That does sound like something autonomy would say. Though, in the Trinitarian Christian tradition, the one God is, of course, 3 people, and the 3 persons, even acting alone, are influenced by the exterior yet co-equal and connected but different other divine persons.
Come on, Patrick! Yeah, get it together, Patrick!
The other Abrahamic religions, such as Judaism and Islam, have the much more rational approach that one God means one God. But even in that, we're looking at this commandment is not, I am God, I shall smite all others. Rather, it's an invitation to a relationship.
Right or good, I am your wife. I'm the greatest good you are ever gonna get.
Rather, this God has chosen to be in a relationship with others who are inessential and exterior to himself. This God ain't Kantian's type of autonomous. The Cosmere's autonomy, at best, was classically influenced by Adonalsium's other characteristics, while an Adonalsium was whole. Now that Adonalsium is shattered, autonomy seems to have morphed into the most brutal form of Kantian autonomy. She wishes to free the entire Cosmere of all other passions until there is nothing. Autonomy is trying to outcompete the others by filling the Cosmere with versions of herself. Crowd out the competition, so to speak. Like an extremely invasive plant moving into another ecosystem and strangling the local varieties. We hear this from Shay, or Moonlight, in The Lost Metal. She has apparently seen Autonomy in action and knows her playbook. To put this another way, let us turn to another book. She has ruthlessly broken down all obstacles and liquidated all failures, and today, in her highest form, she presses forward to that interplanetary leap which will, perhaps, place her forever beyond the reach of death. Yes, this was point 10 of last week's video, in which I hypothesized that Autonomy's endgame can be found in Out of the Silent Planet. Have you ever heard that one before? Let me know what you have heard about Autonomy down in the comments. Thank you! Admittedly, Out of the Silent Planet is feminizing life, which sounds a lot like cultivation, and frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if cultivation has some sort of pact with autonomy. But Sanderson isn't Lewis. For me, he is to Lewis what Jordan is to Tolkien, taking their ideas and reimagining them in new and creative ways we have never seen before. Of Trell and Jaddeth. Following the Lost Metal, it's easy to return to Elantris and see Autonomy's work on this planet within the story. From what we get on the history of Shudireth, one would presume that it is the Dominion-influenced splinter of Shukeseg. Deloff revealed that monastery leaders in Shudireth, who are in charge of forming the next generation of preachers, have access to Skays, who are splinters of Dominion, just as the Karathi have access to Seons, who are splinters of Devotion. But, as Hrathen observed, Shudireth has turned away from the path of pure dominion. Fjordan's armies come not to dominate, they come to massacre.
Fluffy's master plan for world domination.
But why and how? The simple answer is Autonomy's influence. We know that she sets up seed religions and convoluted organizations across the Cosmere. As we hear from Moonlight, Trellism is the remnants of an ancient religion on your world, originally founded by Autonomy long, long ago, a seed for when she decided to move in. Shay also has surprising knowledge of Autonomy's organization's inner workings. There's rivalry among the ranks, Moonlight said. There always is with Autonomy. So Telson will have to prove she's the strongest, the best. And since creativity and individualism are Autonomy's stated interest, she'll reward grit, success, vision. In other words, Autonomy rewards ambition. As we saw with Telson, Telson's incredible ambition fit perfectly with the set's goals. And as we saw in Shudireth, Lord Jaddeth rewards ambition, not arrogance. Once I got over my Thornbird's PTSD,
she's gonna barf.
I can see Autonomy's work in Shudireth. It also accounts for why Deloff had a harebrained counter-scheme going on, undermining Hrathen's primary scheme.
Tell us where the talking llama is, and we'll burn your house to the ground.
Don't you mean ore?
As that is a byproduct of Autonomy's convoluted hierarchies. You rarely get to speak to Autonomy herself, Harmony continued. As I've come to find, she speaks through avatars. Sometimes through chosen people she has given a portion of her power. This tracks with Shudireth's mode of operation. It was a basic tenet of Shudireth that only one man could serve Jaddeth directly. One served those above him, who served those above him, and so on until it reached Wyrn, who served Jaddeth. What began as an incredibly uninformed take on the Roman Catholic Church's hierarchy has now morphed into the modus operandi of a very specific shard, and that shard is not Dominion. After all, it is the Karathi who takes Dominion's name in vain as a curse. It's Merciful Domai, not Merciful Devo. Grazing the fourth wall, let's acknowledge that this is very close to the exclamation, Lord have mercy, which in Latin is Domine eleison. Interestingly, I learned for this video that even in the Catholic Latin Mass, this phrase is stated as Kyrie eleison, because Kyrie is the original Greek.
Greek, huh? To what effect? It was Greek to me.
This phrase is used in both Anglican and Lutheran rites, as far as I can tell. Point is, Kyrie ain't Jaddeth. Jaddeth has nothing to do with Dominion by connotation or denotation. Nor is Jaddeth the name of one of the bearers of the shards, who were Aona and Sky, respectively. And apparently both were female, so the patriarchal societies of Elantris seem to have veered away from their shard's origins. Why? Autonomy's influence. Thus we see that Autonomy has already been active on Cell, just as she tried to be in The Lost Metal. But something tells me she will gain more of a foothold on Cell because all of her followers dominate most of Opalan, making it the perfect battleground for the Ghostbloods to profit. Profit in chaos. Going back to Mistborn, we see that Kelsier has a very similar playbook to Autonomy. Create chaos in the status quo, grow a cult, kill the reigning god, unknown, profit. Rinse and repeat until you've conquered the Cosmere, or in Kelsier's case, cornered the market.
So when the air raid started, they took off. All Mr. Holden said was, in confusion, there was profit.
I can't help but presume that Kelsier is going to see Autonomy's invasion of Cell as a brilliant business opportunity. He already had a run-in with the jerk Elantrians in Mistborn's Secret History, and their deific noble status isn't going to endear him to even the nice ones from Raoden's group. He is also not going to be drawn to Shudireth, as their priests are very similar to the Lord Rulers in appearance and strategy.
You got tired of rolling peddlers for spare change.
Kelsier does differ from Autonomy in one possibly important way. He at least wants the Ghostbloods to be interdependent on each other. We trust each other, Twin Soul said. We're a team, a family. You join us. You absolutely swear not to make a move against another Ghostblood. No infighting, no betrayals, no undermining one another, no squabbling over resources or favor. Thus, Kelsier and his Ghostbloods are primed to be the third party active on Cell during Autonomy's invasion.
Here's a little dip.
Very little touch.
Most of them are gone, so they won't miss much.
Once there, he will attract the likes of Shay, who had been screwed over by Hoyd and left in prison to rot, though I'm sure Hoyd would say it was for her own good. Also, Kelsier, we know, will attract Kais, the inquisitive, brilliant young girl from Elantris, who notably is not an Elantrian. Based on Shay's forged Elantrian in The Lost Metal, Shay I has it all in hand, child. I'll deal with these, then make a great show of vanishing. Be certain to deliver the proper offerings for the blessings I've magnanimously gifted you, and be pious in your treatment of your gods. We can guess that even Raoden's down-to-earth post-Rio Elantrians have resumed their deific positions on Cell, combining that with Raoden's liking for keeping secrets. Raoden restricted knowledge of the library to himself, Galadon, and Karata. It was not a place to be invaded by visitors with misunderstanding fingers who would disorganize books and shatter the calm. They kept the pool a secret as well. Kais, as a non-Elantrian, is going to be denied answers from her friends and family. And this, I suppose, will send her to the Ghostbloods as an extreme way of finding out the truth. The next secret.
Too many secrets.
Lastly, we know the Ghostbloods have a supply of Seons, 2 of which they are willing to give to their operatives on Roshar. It is likely that Kelsier heard that a splinter of a shard was keeping a cache of invested entities secret somewhere. The Seons had been Hrathen's greatest shock upon his consecration as a Gjorn. Hrathen's surprise had come in discovering that Wyrn would consent to using such heathen magics to further Jadith's empire. And Kelsier couldn't help but rob the place for his own profit amongst the chaos of Jadith's return. No doubt telling himself that making himself more powerful will be used to protect the little guy on Scadrial.
Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder.
Of course, he did create 2 rival religions on Scadrial who will spend actual calamities infighting rather than face the exterior threat. Nice one, Kel! What remains of Cell and Elantris after Kelsier and Autonomy are done with the place remains to be seen. Let me know your theories down in the comments. I, for one, can't wait for the Elantris sequel to come out any decade now? Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you!